All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. All right, so Joni Mitchell has decided to follow Neil Young like a lemming right off the revenue cliff. Joni, I don't think, has sold out any of her catalog or a portion of her catalog yet, whereas, Neil Young had a nice cushion there, had a golden parachute with a lump sum payout to this company called Hypnosis, which I find, the irony, because you can't talk about psychology anymore, according to certain rock and roll publications. Some of these publications are just pure political arms of the state. They just spout the same language, the same talking points. There's no dissenting views. Those doctors that are frustrating Joni Mitchell and Neil Young and so many, because it's different information. It's not misinformation. It's not your information. It's because if the narrative crumbles and you have to admit that you are wrong about all of this, and the argument is by doing this, by putting this information out in such a bold way. And oftentimes, all these guys do is they quote statistics. They even quote government statistics, right? There's a website out there, I don't think you're supposed to talk about it, that actually records all of the issues that happen when you do the Little Emperor protocol. That's what happens, and you can't look at that. You know why they tell you can't look at that? Because it's not effective. It's it's not working the way it was designed to work, and it's been around for like 30 something years, right? And the government spends money on all kinds of things, and they haven't spent any money on this because lobbyists are coming along and saying, nope, you can't fix that, because then there's accountability. And right now there's no liability. So if we had accountability, people would start to question, should these companies be allowed to do this at will? There would be nobody, checking anything. And right now, the argument from the so-called mainstream news is that, well, you can't trust that site. So if you're quoting it, you know why you can't trust the site? I'll tell you why. Because it underreports. That's the dirty secret. They did a Harvard study, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. Look into it, people. I know it's off the grid, and anything that's not endorsed by the state, right? The state. This is the state. Joni Mitchell here is the state. And it's crazy because these were the hippies. The hippies have become the state. I mean, how does that make sense? Look, do I like Joni Mitchell? Let's get that out of the way. I think Joni Mitchell is an important figure in music. I think her guitar playing is highly underrated. Vocally, she's not necessarily my cup of tea, especially, song after song. I think she's a nice interlude between other songs of the same genre, of the same time period, like a nice 70s deep cut soft rock type playlist. I think she's a great addition to something like that. Her three biggest songs, which were radio friendly: Free Man in Paris, Help Me, and probably Big Yellow Taxi. But Big Yellow Taxi was redone in the 90s, and that version of the song drove me absolutely bananas, crazy. I didn't like it. And but that's a lot of people didn't know, hey, Joni Mitchell did the original, and her version is just her banging out on a guitar, and it's just great. And there's always a measure of sarcasm in her voice, and the way she delivers a song, I think, is interesting. With that said, she's not really that important anymore. I mean, the critics, of course, the critics are going to hail her as the greatest, and she's good, but she is becoming more and more irrelevant. So her move here to halt her revenue stream from Spotify to show solidarity with Neil Young and to teach Joe Rogan a lesson. It's just tiring reading this. People send me these articles and I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Free speech was really important in the 60s and early 70s, right? It was really important because it helped end the Vietnam War. And free speech is going to be very important if we're supposed to move past these past 2 years into a place where people don't think of this as the end of the world. That's called conditioning, by the way. I know Rolling Stone doesn't believe in that, or psychology. We've been told that this is, a shiny new idea, that psychology is a new idea, or it's a new label put on an old idea. But overall, nobody endorses this. Of course, there's not one psychologist anywhere on planet Earth who thinks what those two doctors, especially that one doctor, was saying to Joe Rogan. They don't believe any of that. And that's BS too. But here, they condition you in a way where you're not even supposed to look over there. And this is what taking your content away from a platform is calling attention to this mean man who's out there doing these interviews and spreading all of this horrible information, which if people hear it, might have informed consent at that point. Because here's the deal, there's no shortage of getting pepper sprayed every day when you walk into a Walmart and it comes over the intercom what you're supposed to do. There's no shortage of information when your local news channel pepper sprays you for 45 minutes straight, one story after another. And then after that, you have to listen to the information about the economy, supply shortages. And yeah, no, this isn't doing anything to anyone in a psychological way. How could you even suspect that? I mean, come on, man. Get with it, man. So Joni Mitchell here, this is more of a grandstanding, I'm gonna show these people. And it's kind of like you just threw a little stone into the water and it made just a little tiny ripple, right? So all the writers, all of these super smart people that write for the state, let's just be honest, they write for the state. So all the super smart writers are going to come out and say, well, who's going to be next? And they're going to speculate the dominoes are beginning to fall. Who's going to be next? Spotify might go. No, Spotify would be more likely to go bankrupt if they decided to get rid of Joe Rogan. And whatever platform was invented, because it's not really hard to stream a podcast, right? You could basically make your own. Joe Rogan could make his own platform. Now, is it easier for people to get to Spotify? Yes. It's the same concept as all of the legacy social media platforms. Twitter, people know what Twitter is. It's had, a decade plus of branding. Same thing with YouTube, same thing with Facebook, right? But guess what? People will eventually figure out, maybe I should go somewhere else because I'm not getting what I want here anymore. I wanted to listen to Rogan, but he's not here anymore. And Joni Mitchell, she's on other platforms, right? She's on YouTube, and I'm sure Apple Music has Joni Mitchell. Of course, Apple, the great company that they are, they would never host a guy like Joe Rogan because they're, again, Tim Cook, working for the state. It's all about, keeping that propaganda flowing. And I don't know, people, this is almost no big deal, but the media, it's kind of like, the guy in Ukraine telling the president of Ukraine telling President Brandon and saying to him, what are you talking about? There's nothing going on over here. There's no big deal. Why do you keep? So there's so many parallels that I see, and sometimes they don't necessarily match perfectly, but trying to instigate a war, right, where there is no war, trying to instigate a problem against Joe Rogan when free speech used to be guaranteed by the Constitution of this country, which is completely under assault. It's just weird, right? Every single day gets more bizarre. And these people who really benefited from free speech in the late 60s and early 70s are all now in on the Orwellian stifling of speech and information, which it just really disgusting and tragic, but there's nothing else really to add to it. Anyway, Joni Mitchell, who I think, again, is an important figure in rock and roll, although, you know, you could say folk and roll. I don't know. She's definitely more folky, but she's a great guitar player and she's interesting vocally, but she's really not in my wheelhouse musically. But I could see some people probably thinking to themselves, great move, Joni. Show some solidarity with your Canadian pal, Neil Young. And that's what she did. And she's not really going to lose all that much money because Spotify doesn't pay all that much. Anyway, that's the video. I want to thank all the new subscribers, the new patrons. People keep sending me messages. People are really still kind of blown away that Eric Clapton was here. And who knows, maybe he'll come back again. Just throwing it out there. I don't know when, but you just never know. Because, you know, I would probably consider him a friend, which is kind of bizarre, but this is the world I'm living in. And I like it, but we've all got to stick together. You know what they say, if we don't hang together, we're all going to hang separately. So there you have it.